Hey guys, welcome back. We've been harvesting so many delicious veggies from the garden these days. Sometimes we get some fruits, but these days it's mostly vegetables. And every maybe every 2 to 3 days, this is how much we've been harvesting. So I figured it would be interesting to go through and just see how much this is worth, or at least if I wanted to buy these vegetables from the grocery store, how much we would have to pay. Even though all these vegetables are grown without pesticides or herbicides or anything and are, I guess, quote unquote, better than organic, I'm not actually going to compare them to organic prices because I probably wouldn't be buying organic anyway. So I'm really looking for the cheapest of how much I would be paying if I were to buy all these veggies on my own. And I think I was very conservative with these estimates. So really, this is probably on the low end of estimates. Anyway, let's get right into it. Like I said, this is just kind of an average harvest. This is not like a super big harvest for us or anything. And one of the things we've been harvesting a lot of these days is green beans. And I've actually been so disappointed. Have you guys tried to buy green beans from this grocery store recently? Because I have found that they are almost always nasty when I buy them from the grocery store, especially those pre-bagged ones. So I've been really enjoying getting fresh green beans from the garden. Obviously, what I'm about to harvest is really way more than most families could eat in one sitting, so we have been preserving a whole lot of what we've been harvesting, but that works out pretty well because if I do buy green beans from the store, I almost always buy them frozen because, like I said, the fresh ones, the quality has been really disappointing recently. So if I were to buy them fresh from the store, our stores are charging around $2.15 a pound. Again, that price would go up if they were organic, but that's a pretty rough estimate. We've been really enjoying growing them on the trellis this year. Makes harvesting them so much easier. So this is about how many green beans I got from today's harvest. Next, we're going to move on to the bell peppers, and I do not harvest bell peppers every day. The grocery stores are charging around $1.25 a pound where I'm at for the bell peppers. Even though I'm not harvesting bell peppers every day, there's usually some big bulk harvest I do every day, whether it's beets or today it's bell peppers. Sometimes it's a whole bunch of radishes. Occasionally it's broccoli or cauliflower. So even though I'm not harvesting bell peppers every day, there is almost always sort of one massive big harvest. I guess a couple days ago we did a whole bunch of carrots. Of course, the price for each of those vegetables is going to depend on the specific vegetable. Pretty bummed to find that a lot of them were rotting on the vine before they were totally ripe. I think this is a calcium issue. So fortunately, we have a lot of beautiful eggshells we're going to incorporate into the soil for next year. We did a really big bulk jalapeno harvest the other week. These are going for about $1.49 a pound where I'm at. And even though we didn't have a lot to harvest today because we harvested most of them already, it was still enough to be a handful that I would get from the grocery store. Next, we're going to go on to cucumbers. We have been harvesting cucumbers every 2 to 3 days at this point. These are pretty much at the very cheapest, 99 cents each where we live. I am doing 2 different varieties of cucumbers this year. I believe they're both pickling cucumbers, but we have found they are really good for fresh eating too. Today I'm just checking on the beets. Like I said, we usually do bulk harvested these. I didn't think they were quite ready, but if you're curious, these are usually going for around $2.50 a pound. Right now we are very deep into tomato season. So fortunately, I've been harvesting a ton of tomatoes. Now, depending on the kind of tomato, they will be much more expensive or much less expensive. But I found they average to about $2.50 a pound. These cherry tomatoes are on the more expensive side. And then the paste tomatoes like the Roma and the San Marzano are on the cheaper end. So we also do have some beautiful heirloom tomatoes. This is our tomato trellis that collapsed, so I will not be using this tomato netting next year for the amount of tomatoes that we're growing. They are not quite strong enough. So fortunately, the vines did not break. I'm still harvesting off of them, but I did have to ask my wonderful husband to kind of tie it back up for me. This is one of the few hybrid varieties I grow. Lemon Boy tomato, I absolutely love. And then I have mostly heirloom or open pollinated varieties like these heirlooms that I can save for later. These heirlooms are not cheap at the grocery store, definitely worth growing on our own. I think next year we'll definitely do the cattle panel trellis instead. Finally, we are also harvesting a lot of zucchini at least every 2 days, and they're still getting a little bit on the bigger side, as you can see. I cannot believe what zucchini costs in the store. They're around $1.50 a pound, and off season they're even more expensive than that. So I love growing zucchini. We eat a lot of it, we preserve a lot of it. Even though these are a little bit on the bigger side, I have found that this variety does a really good job of not getting seedy and not getting spongy. For some reason, I do not have the best luck with yellow squash. Does anybody know why that might be? Whatever the case, this is kind of what we got today from this garden. This is a very average harvest for every 2-ish days for us. Usually they're actually bigger than this, but again, I'm playing it very conservative. These are some flowers that I'm growing. They do really well in the vase, and I considered picking a bouquet because I could easily pick a fresh bouquet every day or at least every 2 days and count that towards the amount that our garden is sort of paying us back, but I didn't end up doing that this time. Also, fresh herbs. Even though I didn't pick parsley this time, parsley and other fresh herbs are a really cost-effective way to get some money back from your garden. Now, I know these are not vegetables per se, but free-range eggs. I am doing a price comparison only to free-range eggs for these because they taste so much better. It's just not even worth comparing these beautiful free-range homegrown eggs to the factory farm eggs. I am so spoiled at this point, you guys. I cannot even stomach the taste of factory farm eggs. So I will not buy them anymore because they taste almost anemic to me. And this is about how many eggs we've been getting every 2 to 3 days right now from about 13 hens. And these in the store are going for about $6.79 a dozen. So I had to count these because I see the chickens really as kind of part of the garden. The garden feeds them, they feed the garden. It's a beautiful system. We've been getting a really good hen to egg ratio, and one thing we love to feed our chickens to keep their nutrients up is Grubterra. Grubterra did partner with us on today's video. They make dried black soldier fly larvae, which are not only delicious treats for the chickens, but they also provide a lot more calcium than mealworms for nice hard eggshells. And since they're from insects, they help give our chickens all those good micronutrients that they need, whether they are free-ranging or not. If you haven't gotten hooked on Grubterra already, please make sure to use our discount code OKABODE for 10% off. I always have to harvest in a large tote like this. I will link one like this. I think this is actually a beverage cooler, but we have to have huge containers because the bowls just don't cut it anymore. There is so much bounty coming out of the garden. So the free-range eggs, I believe they were averaging about $6.79 a dozen, and I think I ended up with just one shy of 2 dozen eggs right now. So that was 23 eggs, and that would cost a little over $13 if I were to buy them from the grocery store. Next, we're going to tally up the zucchini. Like I mentioned, this is going for about $1.50 a pound right now where I live. And for this amount of zucchini, that would be about $7.50. These are all pre-tax numbers, by the way. Sales tax would add a little bit more onto each of these. Next, we have tomatoes, averaging about $2.50 a pound. This is a really rough estimation. So anytime there were rough numbers, I was extremely conservative with my estimates. I tried to add up kind of the amount of heirloom tomatoes, the amount of paste tomatoes, the amount of cherry tomatoes, etc. But I did stay on the conservative side so as not to have an overblown number or anything. Now, obviously, this is more tomatoes than most families could eat in 2 to 3 days. However, we are preserving a ton of them for tomato sauce, pizza sauce. And I did find that it would cost about $18.66 if I were to buy these from the store. Now, obviously, this is way more tomato than most people could eat in 2 to 3 days, but we do like to freeze dry it, especially, and grind it into tomato powder to preserve it for the winter. Out of that, we can make pizza sauce, we can make spaghetti sauce, we can make all these delicious tomato products that we would also be having to buy from the store if we weren't making it ourselves. I did not actually count this beet and this radish. I ended up just giving them to the dogs to munch on. As far as bell peppers go, again, this is kind of the one bulk harvest we did today. It varies each time, but today was bell peppers, which were around $1.25 a pound, and I ended up with about $12.50 worth of bell peppers. I like to let these ripen after picking, especially since I was dealing with some rotting on the vine there. This really bummed me out. It is the worst smell too, so don't let them rot if you can prevent that. As far as cucumbers go, these are going about 99 cents a pound where I live right now. And after kind of eliminating the ones that were a little overripe, they were a little on the yellow side, I just didn't count those ones. Those will go back to the chickens. But I ended up with about $6.93 worth of cucumbers. I did actually add these cherry tomatoes in separately just because they're so much more expensive than the other tomatoes are. This was a very middle of the road price, the $3.50 per pint. They were just, I could not believe how expensive some of those were going for, especially when they are so prolific. So just cherry tomatoes alone would have cost about $7 if I were to buy them on my own. That's a pretty conservative estimate. And these ones are the Super Sweet 100, another one of the few hybrid varieties that I will buy. I just think they're so delicious. I have not found another cherry tomato that tastes as good as they do. Finally, we have these green beans. We are easily harvesting this many green beans every 2 days right now. These are going for about $2.15 a pound if you can find them this beautiful in the store at all. And that equates to about $8.60 if I were to buy this many green beans from the store. Now that is for kind of not the trimmed green beans already, because I do have to trim them my own. So if you're going to compare it to the trimmed green beans, that would be a little more expensive. So this again is pretty much what we've been collecting every 2-ish, maybe every 3 days. And it is a lot of work to try and preserve it all, but we are very, very grateful for it, and we have been putting it all to really good work. One thing I love when I do grocery shop right now, I pretty much don't buy any vegetables. I don't even look. I sometimes buy a few fruits. We do have a lot of preserved fruits like raspberries and strawberries and even some cherries that we picked recently. But I love that I never even bother planting a vegetable because we have so many right now. So when I added all this up, I was pretty surprised to find that it was well over $75 worth of food if I were to buy this in the store. And again, that's not counting sales tax. We do have sales tax on food where we live. So this would be even more expensive then. And if you consider the fact that you're buying groceries with food that has already been taxed, if on income tax, then, I mean, really the amount of money you'd have to earn in order to pay for a haul like this is quite a bit. And remember, it is every 2 to 3 days that we're getting this. So I find gardens are a really good way to save money on grocery costs. Please leave a comment with what you love to grow the most and what you are loving to harvest these days. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.